If you don't mind, I'll explain in Lithuanian because I see some Lithuanian names and maybe, you know, they are not that familiar with English language, okay? Sveiki visi. Dabar buvo paprašyta iš tikrųjų atsidaryti slido.com ir įvedus slaptažodį grotažymės Memocube, jūs papulsite tokį langelį, ten reikėtų įrašyti, kokiais įrankiais jūs esat naudojęsi. Čia dėl to, kad būtų jums aiškesnis vaizdas tam pranešėjui, kad jisai galėtų kuo tikslesnę informaciją jums pateikti. Ačiū labai.
Hi, Indre.
Hi, Satir.
Hi, how are you? How is your voice?
The boys still are without results, so I don't know yet.
So are you going to present this?
No. Shandor is doing that, not me.
Okay, great. Because I heard your voice speaking Lithuanian, maybe.
Yeah, you know, this was our initiative, you know, to invite as many as we can.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that you're ill. Is it the COVID or just?
Yeah, I am the lucky one with the COVID.
Oh, shit. Okay, I hope it will be easy for you.
Yeah, it's getting better already, so it will be okay. Thanks.
Okay, I will switch off my mic and I will follow the presentation.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much.
Tai dar šiek tiek lietuviškai pasakysiu informacijos, aš savo nuotraukos nejungsiu dėl tam tikrų priežasčių, kadangi sergu, ištraukiau tą laimingą bilietą COVID-ą, tai taip ir atrodau. Tai aš kol kas lieku tik tai su savo nuotrauka. Oh, I'm glad we have someone using Across. That's not very usual case. So maybe we can even start out.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Why don't you just start introducing Shandor?
Okay, will do, thanks. Okay, good evening, everyone. This session will be held in English. So for those who will have questions, you can ask me in the chat box. I will try to explain you in Lithuanian because I see many Lithuanian people here. Shandor is the event manager at Memocube, and he was very generous to agree with my request to give you a free training session about how to use Memocube. And this is some personal stuff because our company is implementing Memocube tool as well. So we will be moving all our projects to Memocube. So I'm happy you are here. And Shandor is the nicest and the warmest guy in the industry. So I'm sure you will love him, and he will try to be as simple as possible. Right, Shandor? The stage is yours.
Right, that would be it. Thanks so much, Indra. So first of all, thank you very much for having me in this call. And as you put, it was not really a request, it was an honor of mine to be here and do this short introduction to Memocube. And actually what you just said has made my heart melt. So I don't even know how to start the presentation after such an introduction. I appreciate it. Thanks so much. Before we get into anything, let me just do a quick sound check. Can you hear me okay? If you just give me a short okay in the chat, that's perfectly fine. Okay, that's a good sign. Great. Right, so hello everyone. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. If I'm not mistaken, it's 6 p.m., 6 past in your country already. So I would rather call it a Friday evening, which I very much appreciate that you will spend this time with me. I'm gonna do my best to make it as concise and as understandable as possible. And I just explained right at the beginning when I joined this session to Alp that I would like to make it more practical. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of the basics, like what the schedule will be, what are the basic principles behind the tool. But since you indicated in here in the questionnaire, in the poll, that you do have some experience with Memocube and also with some other tools, I might not be going into details that much. And I would love to show you what Memocube is capable of and how it can help you improve your work, rather than, you know, talking about translation memories and stuff for more than 10 to 15 minutes. Just a bit of a background of myself. I've been with Memocube for 13 years now, almost 13 years now, and I'm from the marketing team from day number one. So it's really an honor to be part of this great team and working together with these guys. And the great thing is, besides of being involved in Memocube related things and stuff, is that I meet great people like Indra and Alp over the years, which makes the whole industry and the whole job more tempting. So for today, I thought to cover really the basics of the tool, which includes a quick introduction to Memocube, how you can set up a project, what type of documents you will be able to add to a certain project, what is a translation memory and how you can create it, how many translation memories you can add to a certain project, how you can translate documents in a translation environment tool, in a CAT tool, how you can do searching in translation memories, how you can take advantage of pre-translation, how can it make your work faster, what happens if the segmentation of a certain document is not proper for you, so how you can adjust the segmentation according to your needs, what live docs are and how these concepts and features can make your life easier, how Q&A, not Q&A, QA, so quality assurance can make the final results better for you, and obviously how you can export the translated document from Memocube. Obviously, we will have some time in the end to answer questions. So we can go either way. If you have any questions in the meantime, feel free just to interrupt me. I'm happy to answer or explain anything that needs more clarification, or you can save them till the end and then I can show you again if something was not clear, or just answer the questions you may or may not have.
Sandor,
Yes.
I think it would be best if people write their questions to chat box, and then I will bundle them, and at the end you can just go over the question.
Okay, that's also great for me. I don't have any issues with that.
Okay, if you have any questions during the presentation, please write them to the chat box, and then at the end we will handle them.
Okay, thank you so much for the clarification. Getting back to CAT tools, although I told you that we will not be talking about the basics, there are a couple of certain things that we need to lay down just to avoid any confusion. And these are the things that I have listed here. So first and foremost, CAT tools are language independent. Obviously, there are certain rules and settings that you can apply to make it more language conform and make sure that certain rules are applied. But still, CAT tools are based on statistics, which means that basically what you are translating, the document you are working on, the CAT tool you are using, it matches your document against the ones you had translated previously. And basically that's the base of the whole CAT tool industry. We are trying to come up with better or fuzzy translations for the ones we have translated previously. Whenever you translate a certain document, then those translations will be stored in a so-called translation memory. And this is the heart and soul of the whole CAT tool you are using and working with. Whenever you translate a new document, an updated version of the previous translation you had, then the program does match this very segment, this very sentence with the ones that have been stored in the translation memory. And if there is a match, then it shows you in the translation grid, in the translations preview pane. This is something that I'm going to show you shortly. CAT tools are great because they help you process translations faster, because you are reusing previous translations. You can insert repetitions way much easier. You don't need to worry about terminology because it does lead your hands and eyes and everything. So it's really useful for faster translation. Another important note here is that whenever you download a CAT tool, whenever you start working with something, it arrives empty. So it has no resources attached to it. The translation memories, the term bases you have are completely empty. You will need to fill them up with content. You will need to fill them up with terms, and basically you can build up everything from scratch. Obviously, if you work with another CAT tool in the past, you can save all your jobs and put them into Memocube, be it a translation memory or a term base or anything else. And the great news is that even if you have never used any CAT tools in the past, because it can also happen, you can reuse your previous translations and you can insert them with just a few clicks and build translation memory from scratch quite easily. Last but not least, the great thing about CAT tools is that you can translate multiple file formats with that. For example, if your client approaches you and asks you to translate, let's say, an InDesign file or an Adobe FrameMaker file or any kind of translatable document, be it HTML, JSON file, or even an SDL Throttles Studio package, you don't have to have these tools to get translated the text, but you can import them into Memocube and translate it really quite easily. Two important things before we get started, and these are the main things to make sure that you understand before we jump into Memocube. Again, as I put, the heart and soul of translation technology, translation memories, these are the databases where previous translations of source texts are stored. So these are basically longer sentences, longer translation units that are stored in here, while term bases or dictionaries are the ones that contain certain terms, certain expressions, so shorter translation units. And if you do understand the difference between the two, you are good to go and you can get started with translation technology. All right, I think that was all I wanted to say about the basics and the concepts behind the translation technology. So what you should understand is that we have translation memories and term bases, And the other thing is that everything is based on statistics, at least the most important part of the technology. Great. Let me start off Memocube and show you a couple of things in here. That's good news that some of you have already worked with the tool, because in this case, I'm sure that you will have questions that I would not touch upon anyway. So we can cover those as well. If you open up Memocube, this is the page, this is the interface you face with first. So this is a dashboard you can start with. This is where you can create projects. This is where you can get access, for example, to your client's Memocube server. This is where you can manage all your previous projects that you have worked on. You can create backups. You can restore previous projects from backups. And really do the basic things in here. To get started today, I'm going to set up a project by using the 4 steps project wizard. There are 2 ways to do this in Memocube. One is the longer way that I'm going to do now, and there is a shorter way, which is called Memocube templates. By using templates, you can set up a translation project with just like, if I recall right, 3 clicks. It is an easy way of creating translation projects, but still, I'm gonna go the longer way now, because I would like you to understand what are the things that you need to create a translation project, and what are the settings that you need to be aware of by setting up the project. So if I click here to new project, click the drop-down list, select new project, and since I'm using 2 screens, I need to move all the small panes from one screen to another, so it may take some time. Sorry for that. This is the first pane, actually, and this is one of the most important ones while setting up a project. Whenever you start working on a translation job, you will need to either create a new translation project or open up an old one that you have created earlier and import the translation document into there. Let's assume that you have never done any projects, never created any projects on your PC. So let's create the ever first one in there. The first and most important thing is that you will need to give a name to it. Let it be a test project on it's the 20th of November 2020. As you can see, here something has changed as well. A folder has been created, which means that the most important aspects and documents of the project will be stored in this one. And since a folder like this is created, you will not be able to create another project with the same name. Because if you would, it would overwrite the previous one, which is not really a good thing. This time, I'm going to translate from German into English. So let me just select the language here, which is going to be German. That's the source language we're going to go. And I'm going to select English. As you can see, Memocube does support a whole bunch of languages, including Far Eastern ones. So literally any language combination would work if you translate with Memocube. There is actually one thing I don't really understand, and I never dare to ask my colleagues about that. Why do we have Klingon among the languages here in Memocube? Maybe this is a good question that you should ask when you approach our support or sales team. These are the most important aspects that you need to fill in when you create a translation project. Of course, there are some other fields like project, client, domain, and subject. These are the so-called metadata, meta information fields. If you fill them up, then later on, you will be able to filter for these parameters. So it's like if I say it is a test project and I'm working for Indra, to be able to do that, the domain, which is a smaller scope, will be the first ever Memocube project, and the subject, what it would be, the first document that I'm going to translate. There is an important thing that you have to make sure that it's ticked, and this is the checkbox right here, the record version history for translation documents. Translation tools can not only be used for translation, but also for proofreading. And if this box is ticked, then basically you can track all the changes that have been made in Memocube by the translator, by the proofreader quite easily. If it's not checked, if it's not marked, then you will not be able to follow the changes that do happen in certain cases and in certain scenarios of the translation process. So please make sure that it's ticked in here. Just before I move on, I need to set it back because I forgot to set it from Klingon to English. So we are translating from German into English. We are good to go now. By clicking next, we are moving on to the next pane where we can add the translatable document to the translation project. You have two options to go on with. You can let Memocube tell the format of the document you are translating, which is a simple import. It finds out quite easily, like in 99% of the cases. And you also have the opportunity to tell Memocube what the format is. So you can basically tell Memocube what format it should be dealing with. Let me just import the first file for translation, and I'm going to give you a short overview of what are the file formats that Memocube does support. File is in use. Why is it in use? Oh yeah, that's a very good thing, because apparently I forgot to close the document that I wanted to import. I also teach at universities translation technology and Memocube, and I always keep stressing my students that no matter what, please make sure that the document you want to translate or import is closed. And who's the one who forgot about it? That's normal, it seems. Okay. So to give you an idea, here are the list of file formats. Oh, come on, please just move on. That you can work with easily. So if you receive, for example, a FrameMaker file, or be it an InDesign, HTML, Microsoft Office file formats, PSD files, so Photoshop files to translate. What else do we have that might be interesting? XML file filters, PDF file filters, regex. Oh, regex is a lovely one. So basically the main idea behind CAT tools and also file filters is that translators should really be doing what they are good at. And this means that you should be able to translate properly with the tool. So you don't have to be engineers to try to figure out what texts are translatable, for example, in an HTML code or a coded Excel file, because it's not your task. And these filters do help you extract the translatable content from these file formats. The good news is that this time we will start it easy. We will go on with a simple Word file, a docx file. So I just simply import it into Memocube. Depending on the file size, it might take even a couple of minutes to import. And then if everything is fine and the file appears here, we can move on to the third pane, which is about adding translation memories here. Whenever you import a file for translation, it is segmented into smaller units, so-called translation units or segments. And these are the segments that are stored in your translation memories. And basically what we are doing now is that we are creating a translation memory to save all the hits in there. It's easy, like create, use new. And just as the same with the project, you will need to give a name in here too. As you can see, the most important parameters like the language pair and the meta information that I have put in here previously at the beginning of the project are already inherited here. So they are inserted by Memocube automatically. You don't have to bother with them. It's going to be the same with term bases. So it will be rather easy to create them. There are two things that we usually underline here, the importance that we underline here. One is that you will need to allow reverse lookup, because it may happen that you are not only translating from German into English, but also the other way around. If you allow reverse lookup, this means that you can use this translation memory also to the other language pair. So if you are translating the other way around, you can use the translation hits coming from the translation memory as well. And the other thing that is really important is that you will need to allow simple context. As I said a couple of minutes ago, Memocube is based, the work of Memocube and the use of Memocube is based on statistics. And if we have a look at the statistical level and try to figure out how good a match from a translation memory could be, it can be from 0 to 100%, right? So it's either a match or not. But obviously, as a translator, you surely know that there are cases when a translation of a certain term, an expression, or even a whole sentence is completely different in another context. That's the reason why previously we have introduced the concept of 101% matches, and these are the simple context message. If you translate, then Memocube matches your translatable document, your translatable segment, with the one which is stored in the translation memory. If there is a match, then if there is a perfect match, then you receive 100% match for this. But Memocube also checks if the previous one and the one after the segment you are translating do match with the ones in the translation memory the same way. And if they do, then you will get a 101% match. It is really useful because, for example, if you pre-translate a document and you insert those 101% matches, the chances that the translation for this very segment is good are way much higher than, for example, with 100% matches. And it's the same for proofreaders. If you are doing proofreading, chances for a better result are way much higher for these kind of results. And basically, these are the things that you need to do to create a translation memory. One more important thing here, translation memories do work in one language pair only. So if you have more working languages like Lithuanian, German, English, then you cannot combine those in one single project. If you want to do that, you will need to create a separate one. The good news is, though, that there is a resource in Memocube which works in multiple languages. When it comes to term bases, this is something that you can create in many languages. So if I click here and create one, come back over here, give it a name. Again, all the fields are inserted here automatically. Then I can select the number of languages, any number of languages, any language in here, basically. So if you, for example, again, getting back to the previous example, Lithuanian, English, French, German, any language you work at, you can take them in here all. And this also means, basically, that you can use the very same term base for each and every project. you use or translate. There is one more important thing here, and I'm just getting back to translation memories that I missed to mention here. I'm creating a dummy translation memory just to make sure that I have two attached to this project. Sometimes translators do ask me whether or not it's good to have one big single translation memory attached to a project, or is it any better to have multiple translation memories or term bases attached to a project? This is something that you will see and experience, like which is the best way to go with. For me, it's much easier to create, because I'm a translator as well. This is something that I forgot to mention at the beginning. I do translate from German into Hungarian, technical documentation mostly. And for me, it's much better to segment my translation memories based on clients, because this makes me differentiate all my content easily. So the rule here is that you can attach any translation memory to your project. So if I had like 10 here, then I can attach each and every translation memory to a single project. However, it will only save stored translations, approved translations in the one which is marked as working or master. This is also good because it will not fill up the other translation memories with content that are not relevant to that one at all. And the same applies to term bases. It happens the same. It will basically save the terms in the one which is marked as number 1 or ranked as number 1 in here. So if you have the document added to your translation project, and if you have the term base and the translation memory attached to your project, then you are good to go, and you can create the translation project by clicking Finish. If you miss to add anything in this 4-step wizard before that, then you can do all these here again. So if you miss to add translation memories or create translation memories, you can do it here. The same goes with term bases. You can add them here if you miss to add them here in this pane easily. Before you get into the translation job, before you start working on the actual translation, what you need to do is to check how big the file you receive for translation is. If you click the file and run a analysis, then you will see that since we are working with an empty translation memory, we have a translation document that has 51 words in here, from which we have 7 words that are repetitions in there, and we have 44 no matches. It's not that bad, but still, this is something that we can improve on. Then Memocube does a match and runs the statistics against the translatable document and the translation memory you have. Then it compares the document with the memory, but it does not compare fuzzy matches and similarities within the document. If you click homogeneity in here, it will not only match the ones in the translation grid against the one in the translation memory, but also will check similarities within the document. And as you can remember here, we have 44 no matches without homogeneity. And after having homogeneity, it goes down to 17. Obviously, this is a rather short document, and it doesn't really make any sense if it's like 44 words or 17. But I just got a translation assignment a couple of weeks ago. It was a big document, 44,000 words. And since it was an update from last year's documentation, I already had something like 23,100% matches. And it was really like 13,000 something matches for the no match part. And when I clicked homogeneity and run another analysis in here, it turned out that those 13,000 matches are distributed here among fuzzy matches, which makes the translators work way much easier, and it gives you really a better idea on how long it will take for you to deliver the actual translation job. Okay, so let me open up the file for translation. And before we go into the translation part, let me just tell you a few words about what you see here. This part, where you can see the source text, which was added from the translation document. This is the so-called translation grid. So basically, you will have to put the translation in here, the right-hand side. Since Memocube has a homogeneous interface, which means that you are not able to display certain, how to put that? So basically, it happens that you are not able to display certain formatting, certain styles in here in the translation grid. That's the reason why it has these so-called tags that do help display you what are the things, what are the parts of a given segment that differ from the other part of the segment. It also cannot be displayed if, for example, a photo or an image is added to a sentence, like in here. And that's why I'm saying it's homogeneous, because this is something that cannot be added here. That's the reason why we have the view pane in here, where you can see how the actual translation job looks like. And in here, on the right-hand side, and it's going to be your best friend when you are working with Memocube, in the translation results pane, this is where you will have the translation hits coming from the translation memory, from the turn bases, and also from the live corpora, if you may have any. As I said right at the beginning, whenever you download a CAT tool and whenever you get started with it, everything you have is empty. So you will need to fill it up with content. Since we don't have any matches in here, obviously we will need to enter the translation in the first grid, which is to make sure that you can store these hits in the translation memory. You will need to press Control-Enter. Control-Enter and Control-Space are the most important language keystroke combinations, key combinations in Memocube. With Control-Enter, you can confirm a translation hit. With Control-Space, you can insert the best translation hit from the translation results pane. Of course, this is something that you can fine-tune and set up easily. So if you are, for example, working with Throttles and you've got your own keystrokes already, you can change this in Memocube and set it up in a way that works much better for you. Okay. The second one, let me put it in here too. This is the end of the first sentence. As you can see in here, as soon as I put the translation in there, it is inserted here in segment number 4 automatically. The reason for this is that Memocube has a feature, a so-called one auto-propagation. This helps you and inserts all the repetitions in there. So as long as you translate a repetition here, it will be inserted throughout the document down there. If you wish, of course, this is something that you can change later on. If you click here and if we want to translate, let's say, segment number 5, we can see that there's a hit here in the translation results pane, which says that we have a 99% match coming from a translation memory. There are many ways to insert it. Again, as I said, we can use Control Space to put it in here. We can also double click this one. And if, for example, you really do like keystrokes, you can press and hold the Control key and use the numbers that are listed here. So if there are like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hits coming from the translation memory, you can select the one that you want to use by selecting the numbers in here. Whatever you do here, whatever you want to do in Memocube, this is something that you can do either with keystrokes, or you also have the icons up here. Each and every command, each and every process has their own icons here in the menu bar as well. Okay, let's get back to the translation hit that we got. Although the two sentences are the same, we can see here that we only got a 99% match. The reason for this is that there is a formatting difference in here. So the word "and" is written in bold, italic, and underlined. These are the three formattings that you will need to be aware of when you are looking with Memocube, because these are the ones that can be displayed in the translation grid. The easiest way of fixing it is that you just simply select the word, press Ctrl B, Ctrl U, Ctrl E, or if you wish, you can also go to Edit here in the menu bar and click any of these icons in here. Okay, I just confirm it, move to the next segment, and as you can see, if I confirm a segment, move to the next one, and if there is a hit from a translation memory, then it will be inserted automatically. There is one trick here. The word and the "and" over here is marked with tags here, right in the middle of the sentence. This happened because the word "Ende" in German was written in a different style and also in a different format. I have used a different font to display this word, and also another font size to have it. To make sure that the translated word looks like exactly the same as we have in the source document, we will need to move all these tags in here to the other side. The easiest way of doing that is the following. You just simply click your mouse, put the cursor where you want to have the tags inserted in, press Ctrl, select the tags that you want to put in, press it again, and there we go. We just select it, put it in the right place, and press Ctrl Enter. And this way, you can be sure that the translated file, the translated text, will look like exactly the same as the source file you got for translation. In this one, in segment number 7, we do have a 60% match. Obviously, it's really similar to the ones we have translated previously, but still there is an image right in the middle of this sentence. This is not that common because pictures and images are not put right in the middle of sentences, but as you know the saying, anything can happen and you need to prepare for that. So what we need to do is to move this draw tag, which indicates a picture in here, and make sure that it is inserted in the proper place, in the translation part, which sounds like this is an image in the first sentence. Whenever there is, for example, a URL that you need to put into a translation, then the easiest way of doing that is to copy paste them and use it like this. Or if you wish, you can also use the control key that I told you earlier. The most important is that whenever there are tags on the source side, you will need to make sure that the same amount of tags are placed on the target side. And obviously you will need to also translate and confirm the URL that you are using. I'm just coming back to this part, to segment number 3, where we don't get any match, although it really looks like the first one. That's the statistical approach I told you about earlier. There is a threshold value in Memocube and in all the CAT tools that you may or may not be working with. And if this threshold value is not exceeded, then you will not receive any translation hits here. Since this one does differ from this one in less than, better to say, since this one matches with this one in less than 65%, we don't have any match here. So that's the reason why we need to translate it. Let me translate it by using words instead of figures and numbers, saying this is the third sentence. And as you can see, I get a lightning in here immediately. This lightning indicates that there is a warning in the segment. And if you double click this little warning, then you will also get a notification from Memocube what the issue with this segment is. And this is basically part of the QA, the quality assurance that we will be running now. If you have quality assurance, if you run a quality assurance check at the end of the translation job, then the quality assurance module will check whether you have used the terms during the translation properly. It also checks if there are any white spaces in your document. It also indicates if there is a tag related error in your translation. It also matches numbers against the source and the segment. I also used to translate financial text. And when I had to submit a document to the financial authorities, it was filled up with numbers and figures. And 10 million euros or 100 million euros is not a big deal if you translate. I mean, it's just a one-digit difference, but in real life, it does make a difference. So that's what QA is really good for. If you run a QA and if you make a mistake, then all these mistakes can be spotted quite easily. If you think that this is perfectly fine, so the way you have translated is good, then you can simply just ignore this warning that you got. And then the color of this little lightning icon will be changed to blue, which means that you have recognized, acknowledged that this is something that you don't need to worry about. If you are here and you are familiar with translation memories already, let me bring in another resource that is important for Memocube and also for other tools. And these are the terms that you can record while you are translating. If you select a word on the left-hand side and find the equivalent on the right-hand side and press Ctrl E, then it will open up the term-based entry creation pane. You will need to double check if the source term is fine, if the target term is fine. You can set a great deal of parameters. You can also mark it as a forbidden term just to make sure that you will never ever use it again, or if your client requires you to do so. If this helps, you can also add an image here or a description that helps you understand better what this certain term is about. And you just simply hit OK. And if you hit OK, then all those sentences that do contain those terms will be marked. I mean, the words in the sentences, in the segments, will be marked with, well, let's call it blue. And also here in the translation results pane, terms coming from the term bases will be displayed with a blue colored segment pair at the bottom in here. If you fill it up and if you add the metadata information on what this term is about, then this information is displayed here. So that's why I'm saying that, for example, if you add the picture, if you explain or give a short description on the term that you are using, like what it is about, then it is displayed here. And it can help your work while translating it. Okay, let me just make an error here on purpose. And let's assume that we are done with the translation part now. We are about to send it back to our client. The only thing we need to do now is to do a quick review and run the QA, the quality assurance here. As soon as I run it, it displays all the warnings and all the errors that may or may not affect our translation. Again, just as I have shown you when I opened up the lightning icon, the lightning message, you can ignore them, or you can go one by one and change them if needed. So there is an inconsistent translation, it says, which means that it should be changed accordingly. It also says, let's say number 7, a space is missing here, which is true because I failed to add it after putting in the draw tag in the target segment. And as long as you correct the segment, the warning that it indicates, the color of the line will be turned into green, which means that it is already correct. Okay, and as soon as you are done with that, you checked everything and corrected everything or ignored everything, you can just go back to Documents, click Export, and choose the way how to get it out from Memocube. You can export it to a stored path, which means that it will export the document to the exact same place where you have imported it from. You can choose the path like where you want to export it, be it an external hard drive or anywhere on your hard drive. And the good news is that you can export also bilingual files. So for example, if you work with someone who is not using Memocube and you want to ask this friend of yours to do some proofreading for you, then you can create a 2-column RTF file that you send over. This guy opens up the Word file, does the correction, and sends it back to you. You can also export bilingual Throttles doc RTF files. To tell you the truth, I don't really like this format. One thing is that it's already outdated. So when it comes to working with SDL Throttles files, you can also work with Throttles Studio packages, which is way more advanced and way much easier to handle. So I don't really propose to do that. Obviously, if your clients ask you to deliver a file in format like this, then you will need to do that. The thing that you need to be aware of is the Memocube XLIF part, because this is the one that next to the translation results in here, this is one of the things that can be your best friend when you are working with Memocube. Sometimes it does happen that, for example, you cannot export a certain file for a certain translation from Memocube because it does have errors or because something has gone wrong with your computer. There was a blue screen that whatever has happened, or maybe the source file was corrupted and this is something that you never spot at the beginning. The good news is that whatever happens, you can export this this file or translation into Memocube XLIF. And if you send it over to our support team, they can extract it for you. So you don't need to worry about the fact that your translation gets lost or you will not be able to get it out from Memocube, because if you send it over to support using Memocube XLIF, you will be able to get your translation back. Now I'm gonna export it just into a single one language document, and I'm gonna show you how to do that. I'm going to choose the path. I'll put it on my desktop. And as soon as it's exported, it opens up immediately. And that's why I said that tags should be put on the right places, because if I put the tags in this sentence to somewhere else, then the word "and" would not be displayed like this. Again, if I miss to add the draw tag in the sentence, in the one in line number 7, then I wouldn't have this image here. So that's the reason why it is important to place tags to the right places. Okay, getting back to that, since we have already built up a nice translation memory and we can translate these sentences already, let me just show you how you can use the pre-translation functionality in Memocube. Let me just remove all the translations from my document, just to simulate that I have a document that I need to translate with my translation memory. Okay, I have nothing added here. Let's assume that you have an update from a previous translations of yours that you need to translate. You go to Preparation, click Pre-Translate. You end up opening this pane. You select exact matches, exact TM matches. It is important that you use this one, because if you pick exact TM matches, you will have 100 and 101% matches inserted in the translation grid as well. While if you just select this one, you will only have 101% matches imported. So let's click this one and make sure that the one right at the bottom, automatically join and split segments for the best match, is also ticked here. So these are the most important settings. If you click OK, then all your 100 and 101% matches will be inserted here. I made a mistake because right before we started to run this course, I had another one where I delivered a demo and I changed the settings of the pre-translate grid. Let me show you how it works, because as you can see, if I pre-translated it, it turned out to be confirmed segments, which is not the case by default. Let me press Ctrl+Z, which is the one that you can use to revoke changes and go back one step or another. If you pre-translate a document, then the default setting is that segments are not confirmed. And the idea is that even if it's pre-translated, even if it comes from translation memory, and even if it's a 101% match, the translator will always need to confirm each and every segment, because this is essential to make sure that nothing happens automatically. But obviously, if you do trust the translation memory, if you got it from your client, or if this is something that you have built up on your own, then you can choose the other setting that I have shown you just recently. So let me wrap it up. We have checked how to translate with the file, how to add terms to your term bases, how to fill up your translation memories with content, how to pre-translate stuff. What we have not seen yet is how to edit the segments that you need to work on. Sometimes it happens that the document you are working on is not properly segmented. So, for example, a sentence, there is a line break in the middle of the sentence, and it gets broken into 2 lines. Should that be the case, you can merge them easily. You just click the segment you want to merge with the one right after that, go to Edit, and click Join. And as you can see, these tags are merged immediately. If you are not happy with the way Memocube segmented and you want to, for example, put one sentence into 2, you put the cursor at the right place and just simply click Split on the source side. And then it will be put into 2 lines, and you can store them in the translation memory accordingly. That's also important. Okay, I think that as far as translations are concerned, we have covered most of the things that I wanted to show you now. The other thing that is really cool and has literally saved my life previously, a couple of years ago, is LiveDocs. LiveDocs is another resource that that Memocube has. Those who've been working with Throttles are probably familiar with the concept of alignment. When you fill up your tool with source documents, and you also fill up translations that have not been done with translation tools previously. So basically source text and target text. And then you align each and every segment manually to be able to build up a translation memory. It is really useful if you have not had any experience with CAT tools in the past, or if you translated your documents without using a CAT tool, but you still have the source and the target documents for these days. With LiveDocs, you can easily import all your previous translations into Memocube. You create a corpora, add the source document and the target document in here. It can also be useful if you, for example, browse over the internet and find some nice reference materials from trusted sources, web pages, PDF files, Word files, whatever you want to use, PPT files, and you can build a translation memory just in a few seconds and clicks with that. So now we are translating from German into English. I'm adding the source file. I'm adding the target file, which is an English one. Also set the following parameters to make sure that the alignment will be better. One important aspect that I forgot to mention, LiveDocs is based on structural alignment. So it's not like you feed it in and it will try to find you the right sentence, the right pair for a given source text. If they are in pair in the source and the target document, then they will be matched easily and hopefully in a good way. If, for example, there is a line break, or if there is a difference of 2 pages between the 2 relevant segments, then LiveDocs will not be able to find it. If you really want to fix it, you can do that manually. I'm going to show you how you can do that. Again, getting back to that, to make sure that the alignment is good enough, you can set that Memocube compares inline tags so that they are the same on the source and the target side. Check formatting like bold, italic, underlined, and also to check terms, whether or not they can be found in the term base and also in the documents that you have filled in. Okay, and that was it basically. I created my LiveDocs corpora, and I'm good to go. I'm good to start the translation. Just remember, now we are going to translate a technical documentation of a lawnmower. And although I don't have any translation memory built up in the past for technical documentation like this, since I added my LiveDocs corpora here, I already start receiving hits from this LiveDocs corpora. These are, well, the best hit coming from the LiveDocs corpora can be a 85% match. The reason for this is that it is an automated alignment. And being something automated, you have a larger penalty on these. Basically, this warns you to make sure that you are not approving anything automatically coming from this corpora. So you better double check everything that is listed in here. If a hit is good enough to be able to use it for your translation, you can insert it easily by pressing Ctrl space. And as soon as you confirm it, you can see that instead of having this green icon with the document here, will be changed to a tick, which means that it already stored in your translation memory. This way, LiveDocs is good for two things. One is that you don't need to spend hours with aligning documents, aligning them for hours to be able to build the translation memory, because this is something that you can do with a few clicks. And the other thing is that you can build up translation memories by using and confirming only those segments that are really relevant for your translation, which means that you will not store translations that you will never ever use again. Just to give you an idea, better to say two examples from my life, from my working life here. When I started to work for an LSP, which was like 15 or 16 years ago, one of my first assignments was to create a big translation memory to be able to translate a big technical documentation. I spent exactly 1 week by aligning segments. And in the end, it turned out that my colleagues could only use like 2% of what I have done for a week. If we had LiveDocs, then we would have never done this. We just filled in the source and the target files, and we could have started working on the file immediately. And the other thing, and it was literally a lifesaver for me, on the way home, traveling home, long distance bus, translating with a short deadline, don't ask me how, I managed to delete my master translation memory. I didn't have the translation memory anymore. I wasn't able to revoke it. I didn't have any backup of this translation memory. So I lost 5 or 6 years of work in a second. What I did, and it took me about an hour or something, I collected all my previous translations from the last 6 years. I filled them up into LiveDocs, and then I managed to build up my translation memory. Obviously not precisely the one that I used, but still something usable in less than an hour. And it was literally a lifesaver because I had a tight deadline for the next day. Getting back to this example, if you are not happy with the translation, or not even the translation, but the alignment, then you can go back to LiveDocs, open up the language pair that you created, and double check the aligned parts here. If you are not happy with something, you can easily reconnect them by selecting the proper source segment here and clicking the target segment and clicking creating a side-row link. As soon as they are marked with blue, it means that this is something that the translator or the proofreader has confirmed. If we are getting back to the scenario that I mentioned to you earlier, that let's say we have this term listed up here in segment number 9, and we have an equivalent in English in line number 30, then you will need to create a crosslink to be able to connect them. So basically anything is doable. The most important is that you only need to go back to LiveDocs if there is an error on the translation grid. If you are happy with the results, you don't need to bother with the results coming from it. You just use them for translation. Let me just do a quick test here and make sure that I can show you how, and it's going to be the last one before the Q&A, how reviewing, how proofreading does work in Memocube. I do a short pre-translation here. Let's check if it does work. Now, not even pre-translation. I'm going to insert them. Just a couple of sentences here. Yes, that's the one. It is displayed. It is not displayed properly now because, as you might remember, I connected it with this target equivalent in here, and that's the reason why I got it inserted here in this segment. Getting back to the last part of the translation process, we can also do some review, some proofreading on the documents that we got. There are just two things that you need to be aware of. So the first is that the project should have version control enabled. This is something that we have seen at step number 1 when we created the project, and you will need to turn track changes on to be able to edit the document here. You also need to change the role, like in which role you're gonna confirm the segment you are working on, and it will be reviewer number 1 in this case. And as soon as you set these two, you can start working on the segments that you got for proofreading. And as soon as you start typing in, entering the changes, those will be displayed here in the translation grid. Of course, what I just put in here doesn't really make any sense because it's not correct, but I just wanted to show you how it looks like. If you hit Control Enter, then you will see that you will not only have a single green tick, but a tick with a plus. This means that the segment is confirmed by a proofreader, a reviewer here, and this is stored in the translation memory accordingly. If you are not happy with the translation and you want to leave a message to your translator you've been working together with, you can come back here to the review pane, go to the left-hand side here, up here, click the drop-down list, and leave any message to your fellow translator. Select the words or the parts of the segments you are not happy with. Click this yellow bubble here on the right-hand side, and you can leave a message for this guy by entering the message here. Whenever you create a Memocube XLIF file and you send this XLIF file back to your translator, or the translator sends it back to you again, then all these changes will be visible in the files. And also all these notes will be available and will be displayed in the files that you send back and forth. However, when you create the final exported version of the text, then these changes will not be visible in the final document. So these are just available here from within Memocube. Okay, that's about proofreading. And I remember that there was a request concerning Concordance, search in translation memories. Concordance Well, basically, if you have a translation project open, then you can use the simple search functionality that you have also in Microsoft Word, or you can use the search and replace by pressing Ctrl F or Ctrl H, where you can quickly find and replace terms, stuff, whatever you want to. This is the search that you can use and apply here in the translation grid, but you can also search in the translation memory, and that's what we call concordance. So let's say if you select a word and press Ctrl K, then you can start searching for the words that are stored either in your translation memory or in the LiveDocs corpora you have attached to your project. It is useful in cases when you, for example, don't receive a match for a certain translation segment, but you still remember that you have translated something similar in the past. In this case, it can be really useful for translation. Of course, if you wish, you can also filter for different statuses. When you have a translation document open, you can filter for pre-translated segments. You can filter for, let's say, edited segments, which again doesn't really make any sense here because this is a short document. But if we get back, for example, to the one that I mentioned to you earlier, the one that I got with 40,000 words and 30,000 segments, well, in some cases, it's really hard to find and spot the only one or two segments that need to finalize still. But if you go here to this funnel and click this one, and you search for all these statuses, then you will be able to select just those that are that you are looking for. I just made a change here just to make sure that the status of the segment is edited. So I'm gonna filter for edited segments. And as you can see, the only edited segment I have in the document is this one. And whenever you are done with this and you don't want to, I don't need this segment anymore, you just simply click this icon right next to the funnel. And basically, yeah, I think these are the things that I wanted to show you today. One more thing came to my mind, and I think this request came from Indra. I should also show you how you can get access to a Memocube server. So what happens if your language service provider approaches you and asks you to translate a document that is assigned to you on a server? Let me show it to you how it works. I hope that I still do have the project open on the server that I created earlier. Okay, if you are here in the dashboard, you will need to click Checkout from Server. You will need to enter the server URL that you got from client in a separate mail, either from the client or from within Memocube. Take this symbol here, so click the tick icon, enter your username and also the password provided, so add your credentials, and you will be able to see the projects that are assigned to you on the server of your client. Which one should I like here? So if you just simply click the one that you want to download, you click Checkout Project, you download it to your server, not server, your local copy of Memocube, download it from the server on your local copy of Memocube, open it for translation, and basically it will be the same as if you translated in your local copy of Memocube, which you do. The only difference is that in this case, translation hits are invoked from your translation provider's server. So the translation memory is connected to the server of the client, which is marked with this icon here. And if you are done with your translation, the only thing you need to hit is deliver return, which indicates that you are done with your translation, you don't want to bother with this anymore, and this is an indication to your project manager that you are done with that, and he can assign it either to a reviewer or export it for delivery to the end client. And as I said, it was really the last thing I wanted to show you about the basics of Memocube. In the end, if we have time, I still can show you some settings that might be interesting, like paths, where the certain resources are stored at. But first, I think, since it's getting late now, I would go on with the questions, if you have any. So at this point, I might need Alp's help to make sure that we can cover everything here. All right, James, you can scroll the questions and answer them. That might be even easier. Okay, the first one from Veronica. Does Memocube support regex-based QA checks? I think it does, but this is something that I need to check also with my engineers. But I'm like 90% sure that it does. What is the approach of Memocube to machine learning and machine translation? Memocube does have machine translation plugins integrated. I mean, the possibility is there to integrate it with machine translation plugins. Unfortunately, this is something that I cannot show you now. But a list of MT plugins is available also on the website and also here in Memocube. And this is something that you can train. So for example, if you receive an Excel file with a set of terms that your client wants to use to train your MT, then this is doable. You can fill it in, you can show your MT engine how to translate those terms or expressions. And then if you pre-translate your document with the predefined and trained MT engine, then it will be displayed. I mean, the hits will be displayed properly. So yes, that's trainable. The short answer is yes. Okay. Related to the above question, what is the approach to false errors due to colloquial and syntax differences between languages? I'll make a note here and I'm going to check it again with the engineers because they have a very much better understanding on this. And I'm going to provide you with an answer in a written form. I think that would be the best way here. The next one is, how would you identify the difference between SDL, Throttles, and Memocube? What makes Memocube better to work with? That's always a tricky question because it's not about what we are saying, it's like what the users are saying. What we have heard, and this is also my experience with working with both tools in the past. For me, Memocube is more user-friendly, but obviously there are others out there who think that SDL Throttles is way more user-friendly than Memocube is. The thing that I usually underline is that makes things and life really easy with Memocube is live docs. And this is one of the things that I keep telling to translators, that in many cases, live docs can be a lifesaver. Obviously, there are a couple of features that can make the life easier. What I would suggest is that if you are not familiar with the concept of Memocube, you just simply download the 30-day full-featured 30-day trial from the website and give it a try and see how it works. It has all the functionality, so you can test everything literally that that Memocube has for you, and you can decide which tool works better for you. And last but not least, this is something that is also very important, I think, is the community. that is behind Memocube. And I'm not talking about the company, but about the user community that we have. There is a very live community on groups, also on Facebook, and these guys are helping each other. And you can get really useful hands-on tips and tricks from this community. And last but not least, and also this is something that I got from users while we were talking at conferences, is the support services that we have. Okay, number 4, I use free version to see the functions, but free versions, not all the functions are available. Well, actually it is. The thing is that if you have ever downloaded Memocube on your PC, and if you download it again, then you will not be able to activate the new version of Memocube because it will start in a so-called for free mode, which means that it's limited in its functionality. So it's not the full featured one. If it's the case, should that be the case, just send me an email or ping me over Facebook, and I'll get you a new serial number and give you another 30 days so that you can give it a try and test and see how Memocube works. Is terminology check included in Q&A? If yes, what about inflections for terms? Would inflected forms be marked as false positives? Yes, I think they will, but this is something that can be set. Again, this is something that I can look for and send you a short description on how you can change the QA settings. The recording, I think it will be shared within the group. At least this is what I've confirmed earlier. Again, another one from Veronica. Is LiveDocs Corpora a TMX file? No, it's not. It's a combination of source and target documents, and it's not a TMX file. But as soon as you come back here to the LiveDocs grid, where the pairs are aligned with each other, click Export to TM, and you export all your translations in, or your aligned segments in a translation memory, you will be able to export it into a TMX file. So if you work, for example, together with someone working with SDL Throttles or something else, you can send this TMX file to these guys, even the ones that you have extracted from a LiveDocs Corpora. Okay, and I'm just scrolling down here. Of course, yeah. Okay, I just reached the end of the questions. I hope that I managed to answer all of them, except for the ones that I said that I need to double check with the engineers, but I'm going to give you a definite answer about these next week. Now, since we still have 30 minutes, I think you can also unmute yourselves and raise your questions directly or put them here in the chat box because we still have time. And I'm more than happy to answer those if I can. Or while you are thinking, I'm just going to show you a couple of other important things that you may find useful here in Memocube. If you click here, the blue Memocube tab in the upper left corner, you will open the My Memocube pane where you can do a couple of useful things. Here you can change, I would suggest you to go to options. Again, click here on options. And these are the panes that I mentioned to you that would be really useful to double check, because you can set the appearance of the language of the graphical interface if you wish. Bear with me for a second. If you wish, you can change the language of the interface. So if you feel more comfortable with German, Spanish, French, Japanese, Chinese, or Hungarian, then you can do that. You can change the font size. So if it's really hard to see the translation grid, then you can change both the font size and the family. You can set a spell checker here. There are two ways to use spell checks in Memocube. One is that Memocube can use the spell checker of the word you are running, so it invokes the one from Microsoft Word, or you can also download Handspell dictionaries for your own language, install them, and use them for the translations that you have. It's both available for spelling and grammar. So as long as you type and if you make an error during your translation, then it is marked on the fly. So you will see immediately if you make a typo or something. Keyboard shortcuts, this is the one I told you earlier about. If you are more happy with the keystrokes that you got used to, then you can come here to shortcuts, create a clone of the default resource that you have, go to this one, open it up for editing, and as I mentioned, here are a set of keystrokes, shortcuts here. You can change them by just simply clicking this icon here on the one that would work you much better than the ones that are predefined here in Memocube. All right, and the last one, and I think this is the most important one, it's the locations part. If you go to locations and resources, you will see the directories for your resources, for translation memories, term bases, and LiveBooks Corpora, and also for muses that I didn't talk about yet. It is really worth to make a backup of these folders regularly, because if you do have a backup of these, no matter what happens to your computer, you will be able to reuse and put your resources into a folder really within just a few minutes. Okay. And that's it about settings. In the meantime, I just got another question. Checked out a project from a server, then something happened and Memocube restarted. It might be an issue here when the project is not available. If you are okay with that, I think that in the follow-up message or also in the chat in the group, you can share my email address, and you guys can approach me directly. Send me a note of that, and I'm going to forward it to the support team because it seems to be a Memocube related issue. If you check out the project from a server, you close Memocube and open it up again, it should be visible on the dashboard of the tool. If it's not there yet, if it's not there, you may need to delete any XML file from the folders or change the settings to make it available again. Let me just put my email address in here. It's sandor.papp@memocube.com. You can approach me by using this email address easily.
Sandor, maybe you have some good news for the translators who wants to buy the tool?
Of course I do, but I didn't want to start it off with a promo right at the beginning.
Okay.
So basically, the good news is that after a careful consideration with Indra and letting myself in. And because of our pressure, we decided to offer the attendees of this course a 30% off until the 10th of December, which means that if you want to invest into Memocube now, then you don't need to pay like 620 euros for a license, but you can get it for 434. So that's the deal, basically.
Thank you very much. That's very generous.
It's still the 10th of December.
Any more questions?
Thank you, Sandor.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the great questions you had. And thank you so much for staying with me for so long, especially on a Friday afternoon, Friday evening. You are heroes, really, you are.
It was great. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Take care of yourself and have a lovely weekend ahead, all of you.
You too. And thank you, Indra.
My pleasure as always.
Get well soon. Please do that.
Yeah, will do.
Okay, have some well-deserved rest now. Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. Ciao.